What is up, players? It's Warboss Tay up in this mug. Today I'm going to show you how I painted this Servoscribe. Now I went a little far and I did the hazard stripes on the wire. The actual Games Workshop model shows that you could just paint the wire black, so I'll tell you how to do that. But if you want to go the extra mile like I did, then I'll show you how I did this yellow and black hazard stripe. The Servoscribe here is a model included in the Krieg command squad, but I got this with the Krieg command squad in the combat patrol. I'm going to link that in the video. Check it out because you get an even bigger discount than if you were to just get the combat patrol by itself, which already has a nice discount, but check out the link, see if you might be interested. Alright, the first thing you want to do after assembling your model is to prime it. I use a rattle can of Mechanica Standard Gray. The brushes I'm going to be using are all from the Golden Maple Master series. So this first brush I'm going to be using for a base coat is, I believe it's a size 1 detail brush, and then to do the script as well as the hazard stripes, I go down to my size 2/0. So the first thing I'm going to be using, and I'm going to show you this on my wet palette, which I got from Army Painter. I'm going to include that in the video description as well, just to show you the consistency of everything that I'm working on. This is going to be Rackhearth flesh painted on the skulls and the toilet paper roll. That's just what I'm going to call it. It's the rolled up scroll that they're writing on. I love this so much. They're like floating servo skulls that have this roll of paper they carry between them, and instead of writing from some kind of instrument, it's basically like a quill within a little ink pot that is attached to it. It's just so fun and quirky, and 40K. It is absolutely terrific. So I'm getting into all of the different cracks and crevices, going at all the different angles. Check to make sure when you are painting the servo skulls that you're not, or that you are aware of where the silver parts are. Both of these servo skulls have metal plates on half of their skulls, so you want to make sure you know at this point where those are going to be, so you could block that out for when you're doing the silver parts in a little while. Now, like I said, I'm going to be using this Army Painter wet palette. I think it's really terrific. It's helped me to keep my paints flowing, and even though I should be thinning down my paints more than I do, I have historically gone pretty thick with my paint applications. It is a terrific tool and a resource, so I'm going to just keep reminding myself, thin down your paints, Warboss Tay. You can afford to do a second layer of thin down paint. And I'm going to also include the painting handle that I'm using. It's really easy to work with. My fingers can wrap around it really nicely because of the way it tapers in the middle. I used to use a piece of cork from a craft store, and I would just put some poster tack on top and just stick the base of whatever I was working on right on top of that. I found that using a painting handle has made life so much easier. So Mornfang Brown next. I'm going to be using this as the base coat of the piece of rebar that's sticking out of the base. Oh, I got a weird hair or something. I got to take that off later. So I'm going to include in this video links for the Combat Patrol, where I got this model, the Army Painter wet palette that I'm using, as well as the painting handle that I've got here. And I'm going to include in the description, so check the description for this, the link to Golden Maple, where you can find the brush set that I'm using, because it really is terrific. When you move over to using a set of brushes that really does very clean detail work, it really changes how you approach painting. Sometimes you can think of painting like a chore or like really difficult, especially if you have shaky hands like I do. But since moving over to these Golden Maple brushes, it's made painting so much easier, especially like the script work and the hazard stripes and fine details like that. I've only used Golden Maple brushes for that. So this is now Lead Belcher. You can see that I'm putting it there on my wet palette. You really need to look at the like the 360 view on the product page, or on, you can kind of get a little idea of it on the instructions for how to build the Krieg command squad because it shows you a picture of it painted, but really you want to go to Games Workshop's website and you want to check out the 360 view of this guy just to turn around and see what all the little bits are supposed to be colored. It's such a great help, and I feel like I really have to praise Games Workshop for doing the work to provide a 360 view of all of their models painted, because oh man, it used to be where you'd have to take a guess. Like, remember in the 2010s, you'd have to look at the model on the web page and on the white dwarfs and try to figure out how they painted everything at different angles. Now having the 360 view is just so much of an easier time to get through painting everything. All right, the first serval skull in the front has this extending arm that's holding the toilet paper. He also has a bionic eye. Now he's got a thin clamp that goes up the right side of the skull. You can see it right there. And that's what the pen is attached to. But if you're able to turn your piece around by using a painting handle, and it's really easy to get around. Now, if you don't want to go out and buy a painting handle, you could also use like a prescription pill bottle, an empty pill bottle, or an empty paint pot. Just put some poster tack on top, like I mentioned before. It really is all you need is a handle, something you can easily wrap your fingers around. And after using the piece of cork and even I think I did use a pill bottle one time just to make sure that it worked and that I could recommend it. Having this Games Workshop painting handle has really been helpful and beneficial for me, because you see how it tapers in the center. I don't have to wrap my entire hand around something like a pill bottle or a paint pot or a piece of cork. It's just a little flue right in the center, a little flute like a champagne glass, and it makes it so much easier. So there's my little plug. I really like the Games Workshop painting handle. Oh, I didn't though. At one point I didn't, purely because I don't think they specify that it's only for 25 to 32 millimeter bases. So I was trying to get a Terminator base on, and it snapped off part of the model because it just couldn't extend it that far and comfortably where I could slot the model in. But that's a story for a different time. If you're new here to my channel, welcome. My name is Warboss. I've been putting up video tutorials and all sorts of videos on YouTube since 2009. I've recently gotten into making memes, but besides being a meme channel, I actually do post hobby content on my channel, so welcome. And my current obsession is painting up this Death Corps of Krieg Combat Patrol up to completion. I've already painted up most of the command squad, and I'm going to be working on the infantry and the heavy weapons next, and I'm going to also be building up and painting the Death Riders pretty soon. I hope you're having a great day out there. I think one of the questions I've been asking myself as a painter lately, and I don't know if you can relate to this, is that I don't want to spend and invest all my money and time into something that I feel I can't do justice to. So I'm really trying to work and be confident in my own ability, but at the same time I've come to realize that you're not going to always create banger masterpieces, and you have to have those paint jobs where you get frustrated, you can't figure out a way forward, and you fail, and you just pick that paintbrush back up and you go and you do it again. So I hope that you can follow me on my journey, but I hope you also find that strength and that fortitude and resilience for yourself as well. Just keep going. Don't ever give up. I know so many people who had all these ambitions to start a project, and because it wasn't coming out as well as they wanted to, they kind of gave up. And I hope you don't do that. I hope you stick with it. So I'm using Averland Sunset here for the wire that's hanging down. This is going to be our hazard stripe wire. I always start with yellow and then do the black stripes next. It's way easier than trying to build up this yellow color off of a black wire. Like I said earlier, you don't have to paint this in a hazard stripe. If you want to just save yourself the half hour of headache, then just go in, paint it black, give it a highlight of dark Reaper, and to indicate the light shining off of the surface, and then move on. Flash Gets Yellow is the highlight color for the yellow, and we're gonna just easily paint it down the side. Now, like I mentioned, I'm using golden maple brushes. These are detail brushes, and as long as you take care of them, you don't get the paint in the ferrule, which is where the bristles meet the metal band around the brush, then these brushes are gonna last you, and they're gonna give you such great results. Like, they feel good in my hand. I love using my golden maple brushes. So if you want to check out the set that I'm using, it's 4 detail brushes and 3 dry brushes, and I'm going to include the link in the description and get 10% off with my promo code WART. Now, after that's been left to dry, you're probably going to get some paint splatter left over, so I'm just taking my rack hearth flesh and I'm covering up the excess like paint from the Flash Gets Yellow as well as the lead belcher. This is also where you're going to be cleaning up the different metal areas on the skulls. If you've got any bleed over from the lead belcher on the servo skulls. The great thing about painting a servo skull is you really don't have to work too much on colors other than silver, lead belcher for all the metal bits, and then black, and if you want to do red or blue wires, and then the servo skull itself. Now, because this is a Servoscribe, it's got the parchment, which is also the color of bone, so it's very easy to just have a minimal amount of colors. Now I'm going to be using Dark Reaper as the base for the ink pot. And there is a silver like holder, little cup holder for your ink pot, and you're just going to be painting this Dark Reaper all the way around. Alright, while that is getting ready to dry, I want to talk a little bit about acrylic black paint. Now, if you are like me and you started by buying pots and pots of Abaddon Black, because as each one dries out or runs out, you need to get more, then you are spending so much money on Abaddon Black, which is a paint you don't need to be spending money on. I have that tube of Mars Black that I just showed you in the video, and I got that from Walmart years ago for like $3 in the arts and crafts in the kids section. And the great thing about it is a black paint, and black paint should always look black. There's no variation to pure black. So Abaddon Black, the darkest black you can get at Games Workshop. This Mars Black paint, as long as it's acrylic and not like a different medium like oil paints, then it's so simple. All you have to do is use it as you normally would. Put it on your wet palette, thin it down, spread it around, making sure that you can use it on your brush, and bada bing, bada boom, that's it. So save yourself some money. Don't spend money on Abaddon Black. Any craft store tube of paint is going to last you for a very long time. Now what I'm doing is, after the yellow has dried, I'm doing horizontal slashes on the yellow. This entire section, I'm going to explain to you my methodology, and I'm going to let you see how I'm doing it and how much mistakes I make. I'm a normal person. I'm a human being. I'm not a robot. I make mistakes, but I'm able to understand how this methodology works, so that I can clean up the mistakes and do little visual tricks that trick the viewer's mind into seeing pretty evenly spaced hazard stripes. They're not going to look perfect because this is a very small surface area. I'm not doing like an Iron Warrior's shoulder pad. This is a very small surface area, and I want to show you how it works. So as you saw in the first shot, I was doing horizontal lines from the top to the bottom of the wire. then what I did was I turned it so that I can continue those horizontal lines where they go all the way around the wire. You don't want to go all the way around the wire line by line, because you're gonna your mind is gonna get very exhausted. What you do is you only paint horizontal lines down the area of the wire that you're directly looking at. So don't turn the model around, don't twist it around to go all the way around the wire. Just go from the top to the bottom like the rungs of a ladder, and be as equidistant as you can make it. But again, don't stress out, don't worry if you make any mistakes. Then when you get to the bottom, you turn the model on your painting handle so you can see only a majority of the yellow wire, and then you're going to try to carry over each of those black lines rung by rung one more time from the top to the bottom. This way you're not painting on extra black lines, or you're not missing any black lines. They just go from the top to the bottom. Once those are done, you go back to the first lines that you painted, and then you take your yellow paint. In this case, Flash gets yellow, but you could also go down to Averland Sunset. It doesn't matter. Whichever yellow paint you want, you would now start to clean up the black lines. What that means is if you painted some lines too thick, you would paint that little band of yellow in between to make the lines equidistant. And having a painting handle or something that you can grab onto and twist the model, turn it around, this is where it makes so much sense, because you're going to be turning your model upside down. You're going to be turning it at weird diagonal angles. You have to find the best way to get the tip of your brush in between there, because there is the obstacle that you're facing of the servo skull in the back. Now you can see it's not perfect, and the next couple of minutes is really just going to be me showing you how imperfect it is and how I'm going to keep trying again and again. And I'm going to be failing, and I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to take my paint and repaint. 99% of this hobby when you're painting is fixing mistakes, repainting, finding out what works and what doesn't. So don't be discouraged. Guys, getting that feeling of disappointment and just putting down the brush and saying, I give up. I know I've got another 17 miniatures in this combat patrol to paint, but I give up. I can't do it. That is the slippery slope. When you give up on an army because you can't figure out one thing, that leads almost directly into giving up on the hobby and just giving up on painting in general, and then just either building and like assembling your models, because if you really love the game you still want to play it, or even getting rid of the hobby completely. So I hope you don't do that. Alright, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you that I took some Corax white and some of that Abaddon black, some of that Mars black, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of a highlight color now. So this is the visual trick I was telling you about. To get the mind's eye to make the lines look a little bit cleaner than they necessarily are, I'm taking a gray highlight color, in this case Mars black mixed with Corax white, but you could use Mechanica standard gray, you could use Eshin gray. It needs to be a very dark gray so that it can be the highlight off of the black color. And you're going to carefully as you can paint the bottom half of each black line. It's going to be tricky. It's going to feel tricky. You might paint the entire black line, and in that case just go back with your black paint and see if you can very carefully edge that dark line. You need to have a mix and a ratio of like 50-50 between black on the line and gray. Then take your yellow color like I'm doing here and just redistribute those yellow colors, line them up, clean them up, even them out. This is such an exercise in tedium, but I don't want to fast forward it. I don't want to do any quick cuts. I don't want to just jump to the next section, because I want you to see that it does take work, and you are going to feel frustrated and want to stop. It's okay if you stop. Like I said, the worst thing to do is give up completely. But if you need to take a mental break, grab some popcorn, take a sip of coffee, step outside, get some fresh air, touch some grass, then that's totally fine. At some point, I decided enough is enough, and I'm moving on. I got the Fang here. That's my highlight color for the Dark Reaper on the ink pot. And it's so much fun painting on highlight colors. I think painting highlight colors to me is a really rewarding part of the whole painting process. It's a mental dopamine recharge that you're going to need if you are expending so much concentration, so much energy concentrating and figuring out your color scheme and trying to get it in the right place. Now for the shade color, what I'm using is Agrax Earth Shade, and having looked at the finished product, I think what I might have done if I ever paint one of these again is I'll use Agrax Earth Shade, but I will also use Seraphim Sepia to paint the toilet paper roll, because as great as Agrax Earthshade is, it's a little too dark to paint the parchment, and it's really great for the silver, for the metallics, as well as for the bone of the skulls itself. It makes a nice reddish brown shade, but if I was to go back and do this one again, I would definitely use some Seraphim Sepia, just because it has more of a yellowish, orangey sepia color to put in as a shade for the parchment paper. As it is, I tried to leave the parchment paper relatively clean and only to put the Agrax Earth Shade in the side, on the sides where you can see the rolls and the folds. I'm also going to add the Agrax Earth Shade to the both of the arms that are holding, and then if you look in the center of the rolls on the sides, you can paint in those lines of dark brown black right in the center there. There you can see I just did it on the back skull there. Now I couldn't find it in my box of paints, but if you want to go back over the silver after this and highlight it up, I would go with a Stormhost Silver or a Rune Fang Steel, a really bright mithril silver look so that you can pick out those details. But if you're going for more grimdark and grungy trench warfare look, then you could leave them at this point, or just highlight the Agrax Earthshade silver bits with Lead Belcher. It never hurts to go back over a shaded area with the base coat. For a long time I was like, just dip it in known oil and call it a day. And then looking back years later, I look at those models that I was so heavy-handed with the known oil, and it really made me think that I had no idea what I was doing. You gotta highlight back up. You can't just shade. You can't just throw shade on your minis, as RuPaul would say. Okay, I think I'm going back now, and I've got my Rakarth Flesh, so I'm just cleaning up any of that Agrax Earthshade spatter, but also building up the colors. The more thin down coats of a color you add, the more it will cover and build up and brighten up that tone. So I'm just trying to clean up and make as clean as possible these surface areas that are supposed to be Rakarth Flesh colored. The final highlight for our glass is going to be Fenrisian Gray, and it was at this point that I realized my color trifecta for glass is actually the same as my color trifecta for the Death Corps of Krieg miniatures that I'm painting for their grade coats. The 143rd Siege Regiment in the fluff and the fiction has had traditionally these blue, dark gray, bluish coats, and I've found this recipe that I really like, and it might be just the consistency of the paint, the actual paint products, that makes it so easy to layer and highlight. As long as you thin down your colors, these colors look so great layered on top of each other for your Death Corps of Krieg. I get a lot of compliments on the colors that I use for my models, and for the Death Corps of Krieg models, it couldn't be simpler than doing a base coat of the Fang, then highlighting up with Rust Gray, and then Fenrisian Gray at the end. Now, as you can see, I'm working on the actual script, and I'm using my size 2/0. Now, the way that I do script work is pretty simple. You just thin down your paint. Even if you think your black paint is thinned down, you want to get it as thin as possible. Even add a little bit of water for some translucence, and then paint your lines as close to each other as possible. And I used to just say, just squiggle some lines, but what I found to be really helpful now is to actually write little, not write, you can't actually write this small, but trace little slashes like you're writing F's and T's and G's and Y's, so that you're not just writing a squiggly line, but you're writing a line that's broken up with diagonal slashes of flourishes. And if you want to even do breaks in the sentences or like new paragraphs or whatever, I mean, it's really up to you to make the lines and the script work as detailed as possible. But I think you're really gonna up your script work game if you don't just do squiggly lines, but you write as thinly as possible and as fine lines as possible, with little slashes for the diagonal, like I said, the F's and the T's that you would see with those little flourishes. Also, using a detail brush with a very fine tip is so essential, because if you were to write this with like a base coat brush or a larger tip brush, it's just having a very thin applicator makes so much of a difference. I actually saw somebody say they use their cat's whisker. Like they'll take a whisker from their cat, and then that will be what they use to do this really fine detail work. Now, I don't think I would go that far. I don't have a cat, first of all, but I think if you just have your fine detail brush, and also if you have shaky hands like I do, I found that the way to really brace your hands against each other is to put your forearms and brace them on the end of your table. Both forearms, brace them on the end of the table. Then your hand that's holding the model, the painting handle, my left hand, take that wrist and brace your wrist against your right hand so that your hands are locked and your forearms are locked to the table. It really minimizes almost down to nothing any kind of shakiness you might have in your hands, so that all you're really working on, the only points that you have touching the model or touching the painting handle and your paintbrush are your fingertips, which should be braced because of your wrists being locked in. All right, moving on to the highlights for the skull, I'm using Wraithbone, and I'm not going to paint on as if I'm doing a layering. I'm really trying to do little slashes and hash marks that will make the Wraithbone stand out even more. So I'm just doing quick little dot applications, and that really does make a difference. If I was to just water down the Wraithbone and do long brush strokes that apply the color on top of the Wraithbone, of the Rakarth flesh, it would look a little bit more like thickly applied than doing these short little stabbing slashes. Now, Wraithbone is a terrific highlight off of Rakarth flesh when you shade the Rakarth flesh with like Nuln Oil or Agrax Earthshade. This is how I highlight all of my vampire counts or my soul-blight Gravelords if you're a youngin', and it works really well when you're trying to achieve like a spooky, grim, dark bone color. If I was doing something like Tomb Kings where I wanted more of a sun-bleached bone look, I would actually shade with Seraphim Sepia. That would create a warmer tone in the shadows, whereas this is a very dark shadow look. Now, when you're highlighting the face of a skull, you want to only put some of that paint down on the eye sockets, the cheek, and the nose and the teeth. You don't want to get that color over the entire face, because otherwise your highlight color is going to go into all of the shadows and all of the recesses. It's not going to be a highlight color at that point. It's going to be like a new base coat. So really get most of your paint off of the paintbrush, use your wet palette or your paper towel or whatever, and then just lightly apply that Wraithbone color onto the front details of the face. I'm going to be using Wild Rider Red next. Now you could also use Troll Slayer Orange or any other kind of bright rusty orange color. I'm going to be using Wild Rider Red later anyway, so I thought just add it. You can add it in a splotchy application, messy splotchy application over the rebar. Now one further step you can take, I didn't do it, but if you want, then it's totally up to you, is you could take your Agrax Earthshade and paint the rebar with that Agrax Earthshade to give it a dull, dark brown look. Then take some Runefang Steel, and with the edge of your brush, or the side of your brush, you're going to do a fine edge, hard edge highlight of the rebar to give it a little bit of reflectiveness. Now, like I said, I'm going for a reddish brown rust color on the rebar, but if you want to go and make it more grimdark and less colorful, you could just go with a straight lead belcher with a Agrax Earthshade or Nuln Oil Wash, and then a Runefang Steel edge highlight. I like to have my rusted iron and steel look a little bit closer to what it would look like in real life, so I went with the Mournfang Brown and the orange highlight. Hey, just want to let you know that at this point, I'm really going to be working on just the final details, and these can be skipped or truncated, and you don't have to do them the way that I did it, but basically you find a red color, a dark red, and then a light red for the eye lens here in the front. In my case, I went with Corn Red and then Mephiston Red, and then I'm going to be using the Wild Rider Red again for a highlight, and then I'm going to use Flash Gits Yellow to dot the corner for a bit of reflectiveness. Looking back, I should have just dotted it with a white, like Korak's white dot, but I don't know why I thought that just a very bright yellow reflection color would be fun, so that's what I did, and you don't have to do that. I think that the conventional wisdom is that you highlight with the single dot at the end with a dot of white paint. It's also fun because when you're painting these really tiny little eye lenses, you can focus and practice on painting the reflective surface. And the way you do that for painting any kind of eye lens is you start with your dark red, and then as you're working up the colors, you do increasingly smaller sizes of crescents that start from the upper left of the lens down to the bottom right of the lens, and then you just keep going thinner and thinner as your highlights get brighter and brighter, and then you do your single dot in the corner. Like here you can see I don't know why I went with the yellow. I must have been so exhausted. You guys, I got twins. I've got a 2-year-old son. Oh no, he's 3 years old. And I'm just exhausted all the time, so I make mistakes sometimes. Here we go, AK Terrain's Dark Earth. I love this muddy texture paste for my Deathcore of Krieg. And the great thing about this product is it's a texture paste, so you don't have to worry about putting any sand or any basing material on the base first. Of course you can if you want, but this is so easy to build up on your base. If you want to build up a really muddy base with lots of different levels, then just wait till each layer is dry and apply a second or third layer if you want to get that height. I find one layer is absolutely fine. It's such a great product. You don't have to do that thing where I used to like glue on some basing material and then paint it with like Dryad Bark to get a dark brown. Then I would highlight it with Steel Legion Drab and highlight that dry brush with another color. This is a perfect apply and forget. And as a father, this is exactly what we need. So texture paste, terrific. Basing, ready to go. And I'm using a green stuff tool to apply it. You could use a toothpick. It doesn't have to be any kind of actual hobby tool. Toothpick application is fine. And there you go. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed today's little painting session where I worked on this servo skull. You know what? That little yellow dot doesn't annoy me as much as I thought it would. It's actually okay. I hope you enjoyed hanging out, and I hope you learned something, or if not, I just hope you got some entertainment value. Please leave me a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're not already. It really helps out my channel. And I'm also on Discord. I'm going to leave that link below in the description as well, so you can join me there. We have a great community there. And again, thank you for joining me. Hope you have a great day.